Something has been off lately, not in a small way, but in a way you can't ignore anymore. It feels like pressure is coming from every direction. Things that used to be simple now feel heavy. Your thoughts are louder, your peace is harder to hold on to. And the strange part is, you can't fully explain it. It's not just one problem. It's like multiple things are happening at once. Distractions, delays, unexpected struggles, emotional weight, almost like something is trying to slow you down or stop you completely. And deep down, a quiet question keeps rising. Why now? Because you were doing fine. You were growing. You were starting to see things differently, think differently, believe differently. And then suddenly, resistance. But listen carefully. This is the moment where most people misunderstand what's really happening. They think something is going wrong. They think they made a mistake. They think God has stepped back. But the truth is, this is not the sign of something falling apart. This is the sign of something coming together. Because in the spiritual realm, movement always creates reaction. And the closer you get to what God has planned for you, the more resistance you will feel. Not because you're weak, but because something inside you is no longer hidden. Something has shifted. Something has awakened. And whether you realize it or not, what's inside of you is starting to become visible. And when that happens, the enemy pays attention, not to who you were, but to who you are becoming. So if things have been harder lately, if the pressure feels heavier than before, if it seems like you're being pushed, tested, stretched, don't rush to assume the worst, because this might not be an attack meant to destroy you. This might be confirmation that you are stepping into something greater. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Number one, the battle you feel is not physical. It's spiritual. What you're going through right now, it may look natural on the surface. Stress, pressure, overthinking, people acting differently, things not working the way they used to. But underneath all of that, there is something deeper happening. Because not every battle shows up in a visible way. Some battles happen in your mind. Some happen in your emotions. Some happen in moments when you're alone, when no one else can see what you're carrying. And that's exactly why it feels so confusing, because you're trying to fight something that you can't fully explain. But the Bible already warned us about this. It says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces. That means the real battle is not people. It's not your situation. It's not even the circumstances around you. It's something operating behind it. That sudden wave of doubt, that voice telling you to give up, that heaviness that shows up out of nowhere, that's not random. And the reason it feels so intense is because it's targeting the one place that determines everything else, your mind. Because if the enemy can influence your thoughts, he can influence your decisions. And if he can influence your decisions, he can delay your purpose. So the attack doesn't always come as something obvious. It comes as confusion. It comes as distraction. It comes as subtle pressure that slowly drains you. And if you don't recognize it, you'll start fighting the wrong battle. You'll blame people. You'll blame yourself. You'll think something is wrong with you, when in reality, you are in the middle of a spiritual battle because something about your life has started to move in the right direction. And the moment you realize that, you stop reacting and you start seeing. Number two, the enemy only targets what has purpose. There is something you need to understand clearly. The enemy does not attack randomly. He is strategic. He doesn't waste time on what has no value. He doesn't invest energy into what has no future. So when the pressure increases, when the resistance becomes stronger, when it feels like something is trying to block you, you have to ask yourself a different question. Not why is this happening to me, but what is inside of me that is worth attacking? Because all throughout the Bible, there is a pattern you cannot ignore. Joseph was targeted before he was elevated. David was hunted before he was crowned. Jesus was tempted before he stepped into his ministry. The attack always comes before the assignment is revealed. Why? Because the enemy can often see what you have not fully realized yet. He can see your potential. He can see your calling. He can see where God is taking you, even when you're still doubting it. And that's why the attack feels so personal. Because it is. Not because you are weak, but because you carry something significant. Something that has the power to grow, to impact, to change not only your life, but the lives around you. And the enemy knows this. So he tries to stop it early. He tries to plant doubt before you believe. He tries to create fear before you move. He tries to distract you before you focus. Because if he can keep you unaware of your purpose, he doesn't have to fight you later. But here's what he hopes you never realize. The very fact that you are being targeted is evidence that there is something inside of you worth protecting, something chosen, something marked, something set apart. So instead of seeing the attack as a sign to stop, start seeing it as confirmation that you are moving closer to where God is calling you to be. Number 3, the attack intensifies right before the breakthrough. There is a pattern that repeats itself over and over again right before something shifts. Right before something opens, right before God moves in a way you didn't expect, the pressure increases, not slightly, but noticeably. It feels heavier, more intense, more personal, almost like everything is trying to come against you at once. And if you don't understand what's happening, you'll assume the wrong thing. You'll think you're going backwards. You'll think you missed something. You'll think this is a sign to stop. But in many cases, it's actually the opposite. Because pressure doesn't just mean resistance, it also means movement. Think about it. A door doesn't resist unless it's about to open. A storm doesn't form unless something in the atmosphere is shifting. And in the same way, when your life begins to align with what God has planned, there is a reaction. The enemy doesn't wait until you arrive. He tries to stop you before you get there. That's why the attack often comes when you are closest, when you're about to grow, when you're about to step into something new, when you're about to see what God has been preparing. That's when the pressure spikes, not to destroy you, but to convince you to quit before it happens. And this is where many people miss it. They turn back at the exact moment. They should have kept going. They walk away right before the breakthrough. But if you can recognize this moment, if you can see the pattern, you won't panic. You'll understand that the increase in pressure is not a warning to stop. It's a signal that something is about to change. Number 4, confusion, delay, and isolation are not accidents. The enemy rarely shows up in obvious ways. He doesn't always attack with something you can clearly see. Instead, he works in ways that are quiet, subtle, gradual, and that's why it's so easy to miss. Because it doesn't feel like a direct attack, it feels like confusion. You start second-guessing yourself. You don't feel as clear as before. Decisions that used to be simple now feel complicated. Then comes delay. Things take longer than expected. Doors don't open when you thought they would. Progress slows down, and you start wondering if anything is actually moving. And then, isolation. You feel disconnected, misunderstood, like no one really sees what you're going through. And slowly, without realizing it, your confidence starts to fade. Your energy drops. Your focus weakens. Your faith feels quieter. But none of this is random. These are strategies. Because if the enemy can confuse you, he can make. Number 5, God is using this season to build you. What feels like pressure right now is not just something you're going through. It's something that is working on you. Because God doesn't just take you to a new level, he prepares you for it. And preparation is not always comfortable. It stretches you. It exposes things in you. It forces you to grow in ways you didn't expect. That's why this season feels different. You're being refined, not punished. There are things God is strengthening inside of you right now. Your patience, your discipline, your ability to trust him even when you don't understand. Because where he is taking you, the version of you today cannot sustain it. So he builds you first, even when it feels slow, even when it feels repetitive, even when it feels like nothing is changing. Something is changing. You are. Your mindset is shifting. Your awareness is growing. Your dependence on God is getting deeper. And sometimes, the greatest progress doesn't look like success on the outside. It looks like endurance on the inside. Choosing to keep going when it would be easier to stop. Choosing to trust when it would be easier to doubt. Choosing to stay when everything in you wants to walk away. That's not weakness. That's transformation. Because God is not just preparing a blessing for you. He is preparing you for the blessing. Number 6, you're not being attacked. You're being positioned. This is the shift that changes everything. Because as long as you see yourself as someone under attack, you will feel like you're losing. But when you begin to see what's really happening, your perspective changes. You're not just being attacked. You're being positioned. Positioned for something you cannot fully see yet. That closed door you didn't understand was not rejection. It was redirection. That delay that frustrated you was not denial. It was timing. That discomfort you've been feeling was not meant to break you. It was meant to move you. Because God is aligning things behind the scenes. He is shifting people. He is rearranging situations. He is placing you exactly where you need to be for what is coming next. And yes, it feels uncertain because positioning often happens before clarity. You don't always see the full picture while it's happening, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something is being prepared. So instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Start asking, where is this leading me? Because when you ask that question, you stop resisting the process and you start walking with it. You stop feeling like everything is against you, and you begin to see that everything is being aligned for you. Even the parts you didn't choose, even the moments you didn't understand, even the struggles you wish you could skip, they all have a place. They all have a purpose, and they are all positioning you for something greater than you can see right now. Number 7, what you must do right now. Now that you understand what's happening, this becomes the most important part, because awareness alone is not enough. What you do in this season will determine what happens next. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to feel strong all the time. But you do need to stay anchored, stay in prayer. Not just when things feel overwhelming, but even when things seem quiet. Because prayer is not just asking, it's aligning. It keeps your mind clear. It keeps your spirit grounded. It keeps you connected to God when everything else feels uncertain. Guard your mind. Not every thought you hear belongs to you. Some thoughts are planted to create fear, doubt, distraction. So don't accept everything just because it shows up in your head. Be intentional. Choose what you focus on. Choose what you believe. And most importantly, don't quit. This is not the time to step back. This is not the time to lose consistency. This is not the time to walk away from what God has been building in your life. Because the moment you feel like giving up is often the moment right before something shifts. And if you stop now, you may never see what was about to happen next. So keep going, even if it's slow, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it doesn't make sense yet. Keep moving forward, not based on what you feel, but based on what you believe. Conclusion: if you've been feeling targeted, if the pressure has been heavier, if things have felt harder than usual, now you understand why. This is not random. This is not meaningless. And it is not a sign that something is going wrong. It's a sign that something is shifting. Because the enemy does not react to who you used to be. He reacts to who you are becoming. And if he is trying to stop you now, it's because there is something ahead that he cannot afford for you to reach. But here's what you need to remember. No attack, no delay, no confusion can override what God has already planned. What he started in you, he will finish. Not halfway, not partially, completely. So don't let this season convince you to give up. Don't let the pressure change your direction. Don't let the noise make you forget what God has spoken over your life. Because you are not just going through something difficult, you are moving towards something greater. And one day, you will look back at this moment and realize this wasn't the time everything was falling apart. This was the moment everything was coming into place.